JavaScript provides several different ways to create loops. They all essentially do the same thing. Repeat an action over and over again over a given number of times until a stopping condition is true. To better explain, think back to when you learned about conditional statements. For example, the if statement runs a block of code if a particular condition is true. An if statement looks like this. Inside the parentheses goes a condition. If the condition is true, then the code inside the code block runs. In this example, if the value stored in the variable age is the number 18, then a message displays in the console. Loops use conditions in a similar way. The while loop, for example, has a structure and syntax that resembles an if statement. There is the while keyword followed by a set of parentheses. A condition also goes inside a set of parentheses. But instead of the code inside the code block running only once when the condition is true, it runs over and over again as long as the condition is true. Alright, let's have a look at the challenge of logging 10 random numbers to the console using a while loop. To code along with me, first download the course folder from the link in the description below and open it with your favorite code editor. Here I am using Visual Studio Code. From the course folder, open the exercise folder called JavaScript Loops. And then open the index.html file using Google Chrome. Here I also open the JavaScript console. In the index.html file, remember to link whileloop.js file. In whileloop.js file, there's already a function called generateRandomNumber. It returns a random number from 1 to max number that's supplied to the function. For example, if you call the function like this, it returns a random number from 1 to 10. We learned all about how this function works in the previous lectures, so check the description below in case you missed it before. To log 10 random numbers from 1 to 10, you could call the function once inside console.log. Then copy this statement and paste it 9 times. Whenever you copy and paste code to perform the same action again and again, it should be a warning sign that there's likely a better way of writing and running the code. This is where loop comes in to help you avoid code duplication. I'll start by adding a while statement. Notice that, just like a conditional statement, there's no semicolon after the final brace. Now, what should go inside this condition? I want to return 10 random numbers, so I need to run this loop 10 times. First, I'll need some way to keep track of the number of times the loop runs. Tracking values sounds like a job for a variable, so I'll start by declaring a variable outside the loop named counter and assigning it the number 0. Think of this counter as a lap counter at a race that keeps track of how many times an athlete runs around the track. At the start of a race, an athlete has ran 0 times. Each time around the track, or each time the loop runs, you'll add 1 to this counter. To make that happen, inside the curly braces, we can update the counter variable by adding 1 to its current value with the addition assignment operator. This code block contains all of the code that runs each time the loop runs. For each time through the loop, the counter increments by 1. So now I have a way to keep track of the number of times the loop runs. I can create a test condition like this. Between the parentheses, I'll type counter is less than 10. In other words, as long as the number assigned to the counter variable is less than 10, the loop runs over and over again. Now I'll execute some code inside the loop. I'll use the generateRandomNumber function to generate a random number from 1 to 10 and display it in the console. I also want to display the random number in a message, so I'll use backticks to create a template literal that displays the message. And to insert the number into the string output, I'll place the call to the generateRandomNumber function within $sign curly braces. I'll save the change, refresh the page, and 10 random numbers appear in the console. Now, what if I want 100 random numbers? The loop makes it really simple. Back in the whileloop.js file, I'll update the test condition to counter is less than 100. I'll save the change, refresh the page, and in the console, there are 100 random numbers. How about 1000? Back in the while loop.js, I'll update the test condition to counter is less than 1000. I'll save the change, refresh the page, and there 1000 random number appears in the console. Okay, I'll set this back to 10. Now, let's take a moment to look into the inner workings of the JavaScript engine. You'll slow everything down and look at how this program works and how the browser JavaScript engine executes this code. First, it loads and goes through the program, memorizes the function and checks for any syntax errors. Then it starts to run the program. It creates a variable named counter, which has the value of 0 at the beginning. Then it looks at the while loop and evaluates the condition. At this point, the counter variable holds the value 0. The loop condition asks, is counter less than 10? 0 is indeed less than 10. So the JavaScript engine enters the code block and does several things. First, it calls the function to generate random number from 1 to 10, and it increases the counter by 1. The counter variable now holds the value 1. Then the loop goes back to the while condition and checks the condition again. Is 1 less than 10? Yes, it is. So the loop runs again. It runs again and again until the condition is no longer true. When the counter variable is equal to 10, the condition is no longer true, so the loop ends and the rest of the program continues. In this case, the loop is the last part of this program, so the entire script is done and the program ends.